everyone. Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching this from, whatever time it is over there. Today is another interesting, impactful, innovative, mind-blowing webinar where we'll be giving you insights about visa application, traveling, just like our previous webinar where we talked about travels. Today is going to be packed filled with details and information that you had no idea about. You're going to learn a lot from this webinar today. Hi, my name is Osaye Gwamese. I am a senior client consultant at Filii Magna. But before we dive into why we're here, I know everybody's ears itching with what they came here for, but let's just give you a bit of a view of who we are, what we do, and then we can dive right in. Okay, so can I please get my slides up? Okay. So can we go to the first page? Okay, so today we're speaking more on the Filii Magna Canadian part. So we're speaking more on the Filii Magna Canada. Our topic today is Canada Study Visa Made Easy. So we know that you would really want to know how can it be easy? How do I get this going? So let's go dive right in. So today I'm going to talk about Filii Magna first and what we do, what we stand for. Our vision is to provide outstanding advisory and consultancy service to private individuals and international organization, corporate, government, agency, and our business operating areas while implementing innovative technology, the right solution. Our mission is to pioneer and to offer unparalleled consultancy and advisory across areas of travel consultancy, documentation, visa application, processing, representing the interests of our client and all interests of our stakeholders. Next slide, please. Okay, so who is Filii Magna? Filii Magna is a premium travel immigration consultancy company, a premium visa immigration consultancy company that provides travel consultancy, travel documentation, visa application processing to individuals, company, government agency, expatriates that we work with. We provide professional consultancy service, and our strength and capacity is providing services to our clients, and we are professionals. And we're going to list out a few of our services in the next slide, so you can have like a view of the services that we say are premium, the travel consultancy that we say we offer, documentation. What are those services? So let's show you what they are. So the services are visa application processing, travel documentation, application consultancy and advisory, immigration consultancy, corporate travel and consultancy, expatriate advisory and residency, innovative research and advisory, student visa and education consultancy. Well, of all the lists we've mentioned about the services that we offer, today we're going to be focusing on the last part, which is the key part of why we're here, the study visa and education consultancy. And if you have watched the previous some of our slides, the previous slides we've done, you will see that we've handled some other services here as well in our previous slides. So you do want to go watch them if you want to have details of all of those things as well. So the next slide, please. So our team, we have quite an interesting team at Filii Magna that would handle your service from start to finish with utmost care. Our team comprises of international, well-trained professionals, competent individuals who have experience and knowledge in the highest standard, keyword, the highest standard to serve our client base. Our team consists of a variety of well-trained professionals, and you're going to meet one of them today, one certified consultant as well today. So our team consists of a variety of well-trained professionals who cut across client relationship officers and consultants, legal advisors, senior travel consultant, certified immigration consultants. So we have a variety of team. We work hand in hand to make sure that your application gets through the proper channeling and the proper process. It goes through a proper scrutinizing process for it to get that approval, which is our aim, the success. We're waiting for that success. That's the entire point of the application. So it goes through this amazing well-trained team of professionals to give it that success we want to you. So the next slide, please. Good. So today we're going to be calling someone part of Filii Magna's team that is going to be working with explaining to you what you're here for, the Canadian study visa. The person coming to speak to you is a certified immigration consultant in Canada. She's well trained, she's a professional, and she will give you step-by-step details on how you can migrate to Canada, you can study in Canada, and how easy it will be. And I know you have heard so many ways on how to study, and you don't just get how it can be made easy, but today we'll have all your questions answered. So I'm going to introduce to you our senior consultant and a certified immigration consultant in Canada, Mrs. Olamidotun, as she speaks on this topic. Hi, Ms. Olamidotun.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's lovely to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, actually. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really, really excited to be here. I mean, I feel like this session has been a long time coming, and it's for me, I like when I'm able to speak in an area that I absolutely enjoy. For those that you may not know me, my name is Olamidotun, like she mentioned, and I'm just going to start my presentation today by going right into, second. Okay. Hold on, please give me a few minutes to kind of share my slides with you. Give me 1 minute, please. Okay. Tell me you can see my slides.
Fantastic. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Okay, so who am I? It's a big question. My name is Olamidotun, and yes, like Jennifer said, I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. It's a very long word, but let's just say I am trained to do anything Canadian immigration related. I'm trained, I'm licensed. Let me say I have to do certain number of trainings every year to keep my license. And so whatever I tell you, I know what I am doing. And I'm also regulated by the Canadian body as well. I have an MSc in International Financial Economics. I have over 15 years work experience in business consulting, project management, and immigration consultancy. I'm well traveled. And most excitedly, I always say to a lot of our clients is I am a Canadian immigration consultant. In fact, I can change that from Canadian immigration consultant to I'm also Canadian. So I've gone from being an immigrant, you know, to actually being able to go from living here to also having my own Canadian passport. So for me, it's exciting to be here. It's really, really exciting just being able to speak to every single person that is here today. Okay, 1 second. Please let me know you can see my slides. I'm having to go out and then come back in. 1 second, please. Okay, so as we talk about the session today, I want to ask, I know a lot of people have a lot of myths. I know we had a lot of questions sent in ahead. But one thing I want to ask is, what is the myth? You know, what is the myth that you might have? You've heard about immigrating to Canada. What is that one myth that somebody has said to you? Oh, you know what? This is what has happened to me. I tried to move to Canada and it didn't happen for me. And so because of that, I think the entire process is not exactly as the way people say it is. Maybe you were discouraged for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. I've gone back to sharing my screen, what you've heard. But for a lot of people that choose to immigrate to Canada, the ultimate goal is a Canadian passport. Most people, maybe you're from a particular country and you're saying to yourself, okay, you know what? My ultimate goal is to have a Canadian passport. What am I going to do? How am I going to get there? Or maybe for you, you're on this call because you have children that maybe they've schooled in a particular country, maybe in Asia or in Africa. And so you're thinking to yourself, I want to give them the kind of opportunities that I did not have. And so I want them to go school in Canada because I have heard that from schooling in Canada, they can have a Canadian passport. There are all sorts of reasons why people choose to come to school in Canada. I've heard the ultimate goal is the Canadian passport. I've heard that the ultimate goal for some people is just to get the best education. Regardless of what your reason is, can I say to you that as you're on this call, you are speaking to the right team and you're speaking to the right category of people that can answer your question. So my point here is, what is your ultimate goal? Hold that and let us dive right into today's session. So Canadian student option, student visa routes, the myths. I don't know what myths you have. I've heard some people would say, oh, it takes a lot of money. I've heard some people say, oh, you know what, the requirements are like an endless list. I don't know the myths that you've heard, but the point for me here is I am here to try my best to debug the myths with the questions that you might give us, or maybe just when I do my general overview, I want to be able to debug the myth and give you the right information. Remember what I said at the beginning, I am licensed. I'm not just off the word, and I have gone on the same Canadian journey myself. I've gone from being a permanent resident in Canada to being a Canadian citizen. And so trust me when I tell you, I know what I'm saying, right? So let's dive right in. Now, these are the areas I'm going to be covering today. I'm going to speak about the school application requirements, finances, visa application process, if you've had a refusal, and the next steps, talk to a professional. I'm going to go first. Let's talk about the school application process. Now, most people, and I'm not going to try to focus a lot on this because for me, some people might say, oh, I can go through the school application process myself. Some people, and I know on this call, you might have different categories of people. You might have maybe people that they're parents and they want their children to do their undergraduate degree in Canada. You might have people that, for instance, they have done an undergraduate degree and they're thinking, I want to do a postgraduate degree because I want to take advantage of the opportunities that are in Canada. The point here is you can be in any particular stage that you are, whether it's an undergrad or a postgraduate. Canada is open to every single person. One other thing about Canada is an immigrant country. So when you consider Canada amongst many other countries, they're very open to a lot of degrees that you might have. Maybe you have your undergrad degree from an African university, or maybe you have your secondary school leaving certificate from an African university or a university in Asia or wherever. Canada is very open and welcoming to that. Now, in terms of the school application process, that is something that we are able to handle from A to Z for you if you choose to work with us. I typically say that the average time if you're making a student visa application is, give or take, you need to give yourself at least 3 months. 3 months to go from the point in which you apply and if you get an approval. My advice also is you should spread your options. Don't just go with, oh, I'm going to go with one school. This is the school I want to go and that is it. If, for instance, you say to yourself, I want to go, we're in May at the moment, I want to go to school in January. This is the time you need to start looking at schools and saying, okay, how do I apply? For instance, I want to go to University of Toronto. And there are different kinds of schools. I don't want to focus on that primarily. And there's so many regions in Canada, so many. I mean, some people say, oh, it's only Toronto. No, trust me, Canada is so big. It's huge. I mean, there's so many regions, so many provinces, and they're all differ in terms of the cost of the school and also in terms of their requirements. So if you're saying you want to go to school in January, this might be a perfect time for you to start to explore the schools. And don't just apply for one school. You need to be applying for 2, 3, 4 schools so that even if you get rejected in one, it opens up the opportunities for other schools for you. So that's one of the things when it comes to school application. Another thing that you would also need to consider with some schools is they ask that you do what we call a West, where you have to convert your degree. You convert your degree from a particular, maybe the African terminology to something that is acceptable in Canada. That is something that Filii Magna team is able to advise you and guide you on when you work with us. Now, when it comes to the requirements, like I said, it depends on the particular thing that you're applying for. For instance, if you're applying to a postgraduate degree, that means an undergraduate becomes one of your requirements when you're applying to the schools. If, for instance, you're applying for a postgraduate degree or an undergrad, then your secondary school certificate obviously becomes one of the primary requirements. Now, the first thing is, before you begin to go into the visa application process, is you need to think about what do you have the requirements to apply for the school. Now, once you have the school's approval, let's say you get a particular visa, and let me also say this in terms of the schools, there's what we call a DLI. So it's a designated learning institute. What that means is that some schools, you can apply to them, and automatically after finishing school, you get a post-study work permit. Now, that is something that Filii Magna is able to advise you, because I've seen a lot of clients that will go and apply for schools and are not DLIs. And after the child is done and they're like, oh, my child can't even work. Well, unfortunately, if you're thinking of working and you're thinking of the ultimate goal, remember our ultimate goal is the Canadian part, citizenship, or your ultimate goal is to be able to work in Canada and gain work experience. If that is your goal, then you need to be looking for a DLI. And that is something that the Filii Magna team is able to advise you and hold your hand on if you're one of our clients. Now, having established the school application, the next thing I want to speak about is the requirements. Now, obviously, the big question here, and I'm going to deal with requirements and finances. The big question here is finances is a big part of this process. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of people that say, oh, I got 2 school applications, I got approved. Unfortunately, I could not get my visa because I did not have the finances. And this is something that I say that you need to consider right at the beginning. They say that if somebody wants to go somewhere, if you don't consider the finances, obviously you are going to fail. So the first thing is your finances. If you're going for a 1-year course, how much is that going to cost you? If you're going for a 2-year course, how much is that going to cost you? If you're going for a 3-year course, what is that going to cost you? And so you need to constantly consider your finances. Another big determinant here, in addition to your finances, is the fact that Canada would also ask you what they call an upkeep. So yes, you have the money to pay for the school fees, but you must be able to show that you have the money for your upkeep. So to be able to maintain yourself, example, if you say your course is 2 years, the Canadian government will require for you to have a particular amount. Now, I'm not saying that amount because depending on when this video is being watched by somebody online, we want this video so that somebody can see it and have the right information. For instance, the Canadian government might choose, they have a particular amount at the moment, which for a year, by the next month, they could choose to change it. So you must constantly be aware in every situation that you're applying for in this particular period, what is my fees and what does the Canadian government require that I need to have per year for that particular visa application as a student. I've seen that a lot of people fail. They fail significantly, woefully, once they are not able to provide the finances. And so that is something that you need to bear in mind before you go on this journey. And once again, the Filii Magna team, just by doing a consultation with us, we can advise you. If you already have your school application, that is fine. We can do the visa application process for you. The next question is on the visa application process. I have people that always say to me, oh, you know what, this visa application process, how long is it going to take? And I always say to clients, with the Canadian government, it varies. And it varies, for instance, when you're applying, you are able to check based on your country what the processing time is. But in terms of putting the application together as an applicant, that process, I say to people, give yourself a good 1 to 2 months to put your documents together because you want to be on your A game and you don't want to do it in a hurry. Once you understand, okay, 1 to 2 months to put my documents together, then you need to check how long is it going to take in the Canadian portal for the application to be successful or for the application to be reviewed by the Canadian authority. And that is something that you must be absolutely mindful of. Always remember, as the example that I've given, if you're thinking of going to school in January, for instance, That means you're working your way backwards. You're starting your school application in May, such that by the time it's August, you have your school approval. Then you're spending the months of September, October making your application, and you're giving yourself adequate time to get back your visa approval. So you don't want to situation whereby it's January and you're emailing the school saying, oh, I haven't gotten my visa yet. It takes time. So this entire journey, I say to clients, give yourself a good 6 to 8 months from when you apply for the school. If you have the school already, that's fine. 3 months is enough for you to go from school application, from visa application to getting your approval. But if you don't have the school yet, I tell clients, give yourself a good 6 months from school application to visa approval. Now, if you have a refusal, this is where Filii Magna plays a major role. Because we're a licensed company in Canada, we are able to assess the information that that maybe the immigration authorities have, and we're able to apply for what we call a GCMS note to know the real reason for refusals. And we're able to take on your case. I've seen clients that have 3 refusals, 4 refusals, and when Filii Magna gets on that case, they automatically get it approved. I've seen it all. And so for us, we're saying work with a professional, talk to a professional. And if you're thinking of your next steps in terms of where do I go from here, my point here is talk to a professional. Talk to a professional, not a roadside agent. And that is really why we are here. We've kept this session straight to the point that you're able to get the main highlights of a visa application. But if your case is specialized, then you would need to speak to us, whether you're rewatching this video in a future date, to be able to get what you need to know for your specialized situation. Now, why do I say you should talk to a professional for your visa application? This is the reason why. We have a body called the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. If somebody that you're working with is not a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, please do not work with them for your visa application, because you stand the risk of running into trouble. And so I say, because Filii Magna is a registered company in Canada, and because we are regulated Canadian immigration consultants, we are the right person for you to do this application with. And that's really the icing on the cake here. Of course, why should you choose Filii? We're professional in our approach, like my colleague said. We're optimist in terms of client confidentiality. We approach all our applications in terms of best practice and innovative research. We also handle things with service excellence and delivery. In fact, I say to people, one of the things about Filii is, because we are licensed in Canada, you could literally report us to the authorities if we don't handle your visa application, and we stand the risk of our license being taken away. This indeed is why you must talk to a professional and why you should be working with Filii Magna. And of course, these are some of our core values. You can spend your time on our websites trying to find out what our core values are. We're basic, best practice, always professional, service delivery, integrity, and confidential. Now, I'm going to take some time to answer questions, but the key point for me here is, as I round up this presentation, is you have to believe in yourself. If you want to go on the Canadian journey to a student visa application, believe in yourself and keep going. That is why we are here, and we're aiming, our ultimate goal at the end is for you to have success. I'm looking forward to taking questions, even as I hand over back to my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Olamidotu, for that informative section. I'm sure a lot of us have questions coming up, and some people might have even gotten answers to their question. So I'll be taking the first 3 questions we have here. What's the difference between a study permit and a visa? And another question, how can I process for work permit visa after my study? Another question again, how do I transit from a student visa to a permanent resident?
Okay, so I like the way these questions have come, because it's like they're jumping the gun, and they say, how do I transit from student visa to a work permit? Now, typically, like I mentioned, there's what we call the DLI. As long as you've gone to school in a designated learning institute, you automatically qualify for what we call a postgraduate work permit. However, there are other requirements that are still in there, but all you need to do is put your application to the Canadian Immigration Authorities, put your certificate and all those other documents together. And of course, evidences that maybe you have a job or you're applying for a job, and they will get that. What is different between a study permit and a visa? Study permit and visa is when you get into the Canadian, when you get your visa, they give you something almost like a counterfoil. Now, once you get that and you get into the system, they give you something that allows you to go in and out and travel because you are now a student in the system. And that is the biggest difference.
Okay, I have another question, which is a very common question people ask. Can a visiting visa holder be allowed to live and work legally? If no, how can he or she extend his or her stay to be eligible to live and work legally after?
So no, the answer is no. You can only, if you're on a visiting visa, you can only come into Canada for 60 days and you cannot work. If you're thinking of extending, you have to apply for what we call a visitor record. A visitor record allows you to extend your stay, and you have to give the reasons why you need to extend beyond the 6 months. If you want to work, you're going to need to apply for other programs like a study permit. You're going to need to apply for a work permit and all the other categories.
Thank you for that, Ms. Olamidotu. And another question here goes, what are the most common reasons Canadian study visa application gets rejected? And if I get rejected, how soon can I reapply?
The most common reason I know is primary. I can tell you 80% of the time is finances. Finances, it's 80% of the time. 20% of the time, maybe you didn't put the right information, or maybe you lied in your application. Can you apply almost immediately? Absolutely, yes, you can apply almost immediately. You just need to get what we call a GCMS note. And once you have that, you are able to see a detailed reason why you were refused, and then you will be able to reapply again. Of course, that is imagining that you don't have a ban, because if you've lied in your application and you have a ban, then you risk a big problem.
Okay, I'll be taking the last two questions here. What's one mistake you've seen cost people their visa and others can avoid? Another question goes, what's the best advice you can give anyone just starting this process today?
Well, the best advice I can give the person is just start. Like, you have to start, you have to save also, because you have to consider the finances. And I like today that, and also I would say speak to a consultant. I typically say maybe do like an initial consultation, which we offer in Filii Magna, just to be able to say, okay, what am I doing? What do I need to do? I'm thinking of doing this process. Common mistakes I see is people apply for courses. For instance, you are a science student and you apply for something that is not related to what you studied. And so the government would throw that out because they just feel like you could not justify. I mean, there are ways that you can justify, oh, I'm a science student and I'm going to study business administration because I have experience in business admin. That's different. But when things are not correlated, those are some of the mistakes I make. People don't save. People also say you're a 40-year-old and you say your uncle is going to sponsor you. That just shows them that you don't have the money. And so you need to get your case right. And once again, to get your case right, speak to a professional, speak to Filii Magna.
Thank you so much for all the answers, Mrs. Olamidotu. I know a lot of you still have questions that you're coming that you have, and then you're yet to get an answer. I'll be pulling up how you can reach out to us. Please, can I have the slide up? Hold on 1 minute. Next, please. Next. Okay, so here is our information. In case you need to reach out to us, you have questions, you need to have a one-on-one consultation with our senior consultant. Here's how you can reach out to us. You can send us an email at info@ucancanada.com. And you can also look us up at www.ucancanada.com. You can just scan this barcode and it will lead you right to us directly. So I'll just leave this up so that everybody can have this information. Okay, thank you all for attending this. Thank you all for staying put and being and indulging us in our webinar today. In case you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're here. Talk to the professionals. Don't just meet anybody that will mess up your applications. That's why we're here. We're going to listen to you. And there's a common question that people ask, that what's applicable to me, Mr. A, is applicable to Mr. B? No, everybody's situation is case by case. So it'd be nice to reach out to us. We have a consultation with you. We understand your case and we advise on how you can go with your application. Please do reach out to us, and we hope from you all soon. Thank you very much.